The 2026 NFL schedule has been released in full, which means today, on the May 19th, 2026 edition of Brandon's World, I'm going to be giving you my very early over-under best bets for all 32 teams for the 2026 NFL season, which means, that's right, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, Brandon's best bets is back. Now, again, this is not written in stone. This is on paper. This can change from May to September. But you guys know, first of all, I love the NFL. I love betting the NFL. And you guys know it's my favorite sport. And you also know that I do believe that the NFL schedule matters. Because oftentimes, it's not who you play. It's when you play them and where the game is. So again, I'm going to take sort of a macro view here. I took into account everybody's draft, their free agency, their schedule. I took everything into account. And so these are going to be my very early predictions for the NFL for the 2026 NFL season. Let's first start with the AFC East. And in this division, I have Buffalo with the over 10.5. I really like Joe Brady replacing Sean McDermott as head coach. And I think Buffalo does overtake New England. You can see I have New England at under 9.5 right now. I have them finishing at 9 wins. Listen, I think with the whole Super Bowl loser hangover thing is real. I think the Mike Vrabel story with Diana Rossini is real. The A.J. Brown drama, I do think that A.J. Brown does become a Patriot on June 1st. But the Patriots played, statistically, the easiest schedule in the NFL last year. I do think that was a factor when it comes to their success. I think that they take a step back. I think Buffalo, with Joe Brady at the offensive helm, I think DJ Moore makes a huge difference for them. And I'm not going to say they're going to win 12, 13 games, but I think that they can get to 11-6. They're going to play a second place schedule, not a first place schedule. So I have Buffalo with the over. I have New England with the under at 9.5. And then the Dolphins and Jets. The Jets over under at 5.5. The Dolphins over under is 4.5. I'm taking both those teams with the under. I do believe that both those teams are going to be two of the worst teams in the NFL this season. I'm looking for quarterbacks in 2027. Now, to the AFC West. In this division, I have the Chargers winning the division. Jim Harbaugh has had the over at 10.5 every single year. He's hit that over, so I'm going to take the over once again with the Chargers. I do think the Chiefs rebound from a year ago. I think Patrick Mahomes will be healthy. That schedule, though, is a gauntlet. I don't see them winning 11 games. I see them winning anywhere from 9 and 10, so I think that's easily an under at 10.5. Denver, they have the hardest 6-game stretch in the NFL this year to begin the season. Listen to this schedule for the Broncos. They are at Kansas City on a Monday night. Then they host Jacksonville. We all remember what the Jaguars did to them a year ago. They host the Rams on a Sunday night. Then they go to San Francisco. Then they go to the Chargers. And then they host Seattle on a short week Thursday night. That is a brutal 6-game stretch to start the season in a year where we're not even sure that Bo Nix is going to be healthy. You include 2 games against Kansas City and LA, even more, plus a Vegas team that I think is going to be better than most people think. Their over-unders are 5.5. Now, Vegas is a little bit tricky because I don't know if Kirk Cousins is going to start the whole year. They do have the Dolphins week 1, so if you do want a soft landing spot for Fernando Mendoza to start, that's where it would be. But in my opinion, I think Tom Brady is going to advocate for Fernando Mendoza to sit as long as possible. And the Raiders, though, are going all in on defense. They obviously paid a lot of free agency. I love the addition of Kubiak as head coach. I think the Raiders, they may be like the Bears, Caleb Williams' first year where they don't win a lot of games. They're very competitive, and you look forward for them in the future. But 5.5 does feel a little bit too low. So I will take the Chargers and the Raiders over in this division, the Chiefs and Broncos unders. We head to the AFC North, where every team in this division, I have the under. I think the winner of this division is going to get to either 9 or 10 games. I think for the Ravens, you look at their schedule. Now, if Lamar Jackson is healthy, they have a pretty good start. At Indianapolis, I'm assuming without Daniel Jones, the Saints, who that game would be a lot tougher if it was in New Orleans as opposed to Baltimore. At Dallas, which is in Brazil, but the Ravens seem to always own the Cowboys. And then the Titans, who they get at home. And then Atlanta against Kevin Stefanski, who, they're going to be a good team, though I don't think they're this juggernaut. Cleveland, who they always have issues with, especially in Cleveland. And then it starts getting tough. Cincinnati, Buffalo, Jacksonville, Chargers, Carolina, Houston, before they get to that Week 13 bye. For the Bengals, again, I think they're taking on the Bucs, but then at Houston is a bad matchup with their offensive line. But then they get at Pittsburgh, Jacksonville, who doesn't have a great defense, so maybe they can win that game at home. Miami, and so there's the Miamis in there, there's the Tennessees in there. Like there are winnable games for them as long as Joe Burrow stays healthy. For the Steelers, you can see their over under is at 8.5. I do think that this is the first year without Mike McCarthy. Without Mike Tomlin. Mike McCarthy is now in charge. I do anticipate for the Steelers to have their first under 500 season since Mike Tomlin was there. I think Aaron Rodgers is going to be the quarterback, but I don't think it's going to matter. Quite frankly, I think the Steelers just need to simply take the year off. And then the Browns. Now, their over-unders at 6.5 simply because their schedule is pretty easy. Jacksonville, Tampa, Carolina, Pittsburgh, Jets, Baltimore, Tennessee is their first 7 games. You could see them, potentially winning 3 or 4 games there. My problem with the Browns, I think Todd Monken is a lame duck head coach. I've been saying all offseason, he reminds me of what David Culley was in Houston, and I don't know what's going on with the quarterback situation there, so I'll just take the under. I think like last year, this is a division that's very competitive, very physical, and it's going to take 9-10 wins could win it because they're going to beat each other up. Now, we get to the AFC South, where I think the Houston Texans, even though I don't love their offense, we'll see if their offensive line can protect C.J. Stroud more. But that defense is going to win them a lot of games. And so I have them over 9.5, and I think they have a real shot, by the way, with that defense to be the number 1 seed in the AFC, similar to the way Denver was a year ago. Jacksonville, I think they're right there, 9.5, 9-10 wins about right. A lot of these over-unders to me are about right. I'll just take the under. I think they got a lot of lucky close wins last year. I think that they slowly regress. I look at them battling with the likes of New England, Cincinnati, Kansas City for that final wild card spot in the AFC. Colts, I don't know what their quarterback situation is. I don't know if they're going to go with Riley Leonard or what they're doing or how healthy Daniel Jones is. It just feels like a washed season already for the Colts. And the Titans, I think with Robert Saleh and Brian Dable, are going to be one of those teams that are going to be competitive. They're going to win a game they're not supposed to, but 6.5 feels like a lot for this team. It does not feel like they can get to 7 wins to me, so I'll take the under. Now we go to the NFC, where I have my Eagles winning the division. The over-under's 10.5. I think they get to 11 wins. And again, that's all you have to do. That's what I'm saying here with these over-unders. It's like Buffalo. They're at 10.5. I think they can get to 11. Eagles at 10.5. I think they can get to 11. Now, the Eagles have the most standalone games out of any team this football season. You start off with the Commanders, then at Tennessee, then at Chicago, then home against the Rams, then at Jacksonville in London, then home against the Panthers, then home against the Cowboys, at Washington on Sunday night, then home against the Giants. But to me, listen, they've already proven that they can beat the Rams multiple times, even though it's a tough game. If you win your home division games, that's against the Giants and the Cowboys, okay. If you beat the Panthers at home, great. If you only lose at Chicago on that Monday night and at Washington on that Sunday night because the Jaguars' defense is not very good and the Eagles still have one of the best defenses in the league, that's a great start to catapult this team. I understand why they have Washington at 7.5, but I think Jane Daniels healthy is going to get this team closer to that 9-10 win range as opposed to 7 or 8. And I think that Sonny Styles is going to make a tremendous impact on that defense for the Commanders. Cowboys, I understand why their over-under is large at 9.5 because of their additions on defense, because of the offensive weapons they have. You just know with the Cowboys, I mean, that back half of their schedule is absolutely brutal. Starting at week 10 when they take on the San Francisco 49ers. They play the Niners, then the Titans, okay, but then Philadelphia, Thanksgiving, at Seattle, then a bye, then at the Rams, then the Jags, and the Giants at home, I think are going to be a lot friskier. You can see I have them over under at 7.5 for hitting the over. A lot like the AFC North, I think these teams are going to beat each other up. I think it's going to be, teams win their games at home. They lose their games on the road in the division. So I think Commanders, Giants, Cowboys will all be fighting in that 8-9 win. So I'll put Washington, Giants up. I'll move Dallas back. Moving on to the NFC West, where I do think Seattle, I think they're going to have a little bit of a pushback. I don't think there's going to be a huge pushback. We'll see the true impact that Clint Kubiak had on that offense. I'll take the over, though, at 10.5. I think they can get to 11. I don't think the Rams can get to 12. I mean, when you're talking about over-under 11.5, to me, just take the under every time at that number. If they get to 12, that's a lot of wins, especially in today's NFL. Yes, Seattle won 14-3 last year, but some of it just came down to the wire, and I do think there are more even teams in the NFL than ever. San Francisco, I don't think they can get to 11, especially with the back half of the schedule, where you take a look at basically from week 10 on, when they go to Dallas and they have the Vikings at the Sunday night game, but it's in Mexico. They host Seattle, they go to the Giants, they host the Rams, they go to the Chargers, they go to Kansas City, and they host Philadelphia. So after the Raiders, who knows how frisky they're going to be in week 9, after that, yeah, it is a gauntlet of a schedule for the Niners. And so I don't think they can get to 11 wins. I'll take the under. And then Arizona, I think, Carson Beck, we'll see how much he plays. I like their offensive weapons, but I think they're building towards next year. I think Arizona may be one of the worst teams in the league. I don't even think they can get to 5 wins. In the NFC North, I have the Bears. I know their schedule was tough. I mean, you look at it, though, and okay. You start off here, in my opinion, at Carolina. It's a frisky game, but listen, I'm not big on the Panthers this year, as you'll see in a minute. I think they can win that game because I think they have the better quarterback. Minnesota, they get them at home. They should win at home. Philadelphia, they get at home. They get the Jets at home. That could be a 4-0 start. Could be. It also could be 2-2, but it could be a 4-0 start. At Green Bay's tough. At Atlanta, sure, but I think you're going to have a quarterback advantage there. You get New England at home on a short week. That's advantage you. At Seattle's tough. Tampa's tough, but you get them at home. Saints are tough, but you get them at home. Jags are tough, but you get them at home. You get the Lions end of the year in Chicago, week 17. So I think the schedule breaks that way for the Bears. I'll take the over there. I think that they win the division. I think the Lions do find a way to get to 11 wins. I think they bounce back from a tough year last year. And look at the schedule they start off with. New Orleans, who going into Detroit week 1 is a really tough ask. Okay, at Buffalo, the opening of the new stadium, that's you're probably going to lose that game. But then you get the Jets. At Carolina is not a tough place to play, and I think you have a quarterback advantage there. And then at Arizona, before your bye, that's a 4-1 stretch. Oh, and by the way, then after your bye, you get the Packers and Vikings who have given you problems, but both at home. And then you go to Miami. So, could you win in your first 8 games, 6 of those games, and then you'd only have to win 5 of them the rest of the way to get to 11? I think that's possible. Green Bay, I'm going to set their over under 10.5. I'm going to take the slight under. Now, their schedule is, again, very interesting to start because you're at Minnesota. Okay, tough game week one. You don't know what Kyler Murray is going to bring to that Vikings offense if it's him. The Jets, you should win. Atlanta at home on a Thursday night is advantage you. At Tampa is going to be tough down in that Tampa sun early. Then you get Chicago and Dallas, but you get them both at home. But this stretch of Chicago, Dallas, at Detroit, Carolina, at New England, that's 5 playoff teams from last year in a row. And the Packers are one of these teams that without Micah Parsons and Jeff Halfley not being there, I don't know how much pass rush they're going to get. And then Minnesota, I don't think they can get to 9 wins. I don't think this division is going to have 4 teams above 500 again. It'd be pretty impossible to do, even though I think this is the best division in football. I think Kyler Murray gives Minnesota a little bit of spark early. I think Brian Flores, though, is going to have to carry that defense. I don't think he's going to be able to. And then finally, in the NFC South, I don't think the Panthers are going to win the division. Now, I'll take the over. 7.5 feels low for a lot of these teams, right? One of these teams is going to have to win it. I feel like it's a 9-8, 8-9 battle, not a 7-10 battle. So I'll just take the over with Atlanta, who I think Kevin Stefanski is going to find out between Penix and Tua who the best quarterback is and make it work. I'm really high on Tyler Shough, and I love the addition of Travis Etienne for the Saints. Again, Carolina, 7.5 feels low, 9.5 feels too large. It feels like they're an 8-9 win team, so I'll take the over at 7.5. And then Tampa, I've been saying it, that when you look at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if Atlanta works out with Kevin Stefanski and their quarterback, I really like what Kellen Moore and Tyler Shough have done. Bryce Young and Dave Canales all of a sudden are building something. They bring over Jalen Phillips on that defensive line to pair with Derek Brown. Is it Tampa Bay team that no longer has Mike Evans? We'll see if Ibuka can kick it in a high gear here in year 2. A team that is seemingly getting older. Is this Bucs team the worst team in the division? And I don't see their path to getting the 9 wins. So I'll take the over at 8.5. So that's how I sort of calculated these over-unders, was basically I said, okay, I'm not saying you're going to win 12 or 13 games. But if your over-unders at 8.5, can I see a world where you get to 9? And if your over-unders at 10.5, can I see a world where you can get to 11? Because that's all you have to do. You don't have to be 14-3. If Seattle goes 11-6, that over-under 10.5 is still going to hit, even if it's a slight regression from a year ago. Thank you for listening to my thoughts on the NBA players as the conference finals have started, as well as my predictions for the NFL over-under for every team on the 2026 NFL calendar. Like that clip from the BrandsWorth podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the BrandsWorth podcast right here on YouTube.